Hi, friends, and welcome to the Dreameranddoer podcast. I'm your host, Bree Johnson. I designed this space to be a place that we can discuss dreaming big despite the setbacks and fears that come with it. I invite you to come along this journey with me as we embrace our stories and share our journeys. So let's dream big together and get intentional about making it happen. Hey there, and welcome back to the Dreameranddoer podcast. I'm your host, Bree Johnson, and today I am interviewing my friend Dora Moua. I love her last name. I could probably say it all the time. So Dora, welcome to the Dreameranddoer podcast. I'm so excited to have you today.
Thanks for having me, Brian. I'm super excited to be here.
Yes, and unfortunately, this has been our third time to try to do this.
Yeah.
And we have decided we are not letting the technology demons win, and we are going to record Dora and her story because it's worth it. So fingers crossed everything works tonight, because I absolutely love getting to chat with you, and I can't wait to interview and chat more with you. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? And usually I interview people with businesses, but you're the first person that I have that is, I guess, pursuing business through blogging. So introduce yourself and your blog.
Yeah. So my name is Dora. Brianne already said that earlier. And I am from the Pacific Northwest, in the suburbs of Portland. And I have been writing my blog for quite a few years, but it wasn't until last year that I decided to launch my own blog site and just have my pretty much build up my own brand and stuff like that. Just listening to Jenna Kutcher from Gold Digger as well. So the goals in the future are to also align some of my creative passions and, create products that inspire and encourage women to just like hold on to hope. And that's one of the goals. And so, one day, hopefully someday, all while also making just conscious decisions when it comes to products and the making of it all. So that's kind of where I'm stuck at right now, but doing a lot of research and trying to walk in that just as wisely as possible, and trying to not have a big footprint in as I create a business and stuff like that. So
which, speaking of, like, last time we had this whole conversation that we lost the recording, but afterwards I found your like secondhand Instagram or something like that, and I was like, what the heck, she never mentioned this. And it's great and so beautiful. I was like, I'm obsessed with everything. Why aren't you still doing this?
Oh, thanks. So that was like a little test run for me. I've actually sold quite a few of those things, but that was kind of scary. And I love just the idea of slow fashion, and a lot of times it seems unaffordable, like not within our budget when we're wanting to shop more ethically. And so I've been very passionate about secondhand shopping because that's what's accessible to me, where I'm at right now. And so I wanted to do that and kind of curate just a little shop and be able to resell things that I find as I'm secondhand shopping. And I was just inspired by other shops, and I wanted to give it my own take and eventually include some stuff that I make with resold items. So just reusing like the articles of clothing or articles of fabric that's already out there and making something else out of it. And in a way, bringing the beauty out of like just the bare things that we find in thrift stores that we would probably never pick up. And so,
Well, I loved it, and I think you should do more of it.
Thanks.
So what is your blog name?
So it's Beauty of Barrenness, and yeah, it was definitely birthed out of a season of prayer and fasting, and it just kept popping up. Like, God was just constantly reminding me that He brought me into a season of barrenness, because I struggle with infertility, and that's what I hold on to. It's a daily reminder for myself when I, think of just those words, beauty of barrenness. I'm just reminded of all that God's brought me through, and the promises that He's placed in my heart, and to just continue walking towards the hope that I have in Him. And so, I wanted to make that my blog name and be able to share that message of just finding the beauty of the barren seasons that we walk into.
I love that so much. And one of my favorite things about following you, and what stuck out to me most, was just, I've saw you mention several times that you didn't feel like your story was worth telling, and how it had kind of been a journey for you to come to that place where you felt comfortable and realized the value and worth in sharing your story.
Mm-hmm.
And so because of that, I would love if you told my listeners a little bit more of just your testimony and the things that you and your husband have walked through over these past couple years that have led you to where you are now.
Yeah, man, it's a long story, and I promise to try to keep it short. So we've been married for 12 years, and in February 13. I started really young.
I had no idea it was that long.
Yeah, I started really young. And that's.
Well, I was about to say, I feel like you do not look like you have 13 years of marriage. Like, I'm like, how is she even that old? Did you get married when you were 12?
I was 15.
Oh my, no, you weren't.
I was, yeah. And it's very common in our culture. And so it wasn't something like foreign or anything like that. But yes, right. I get that a lot. But
still, my jaw is like, what? 15?
Yeah. My mom got married at the same age, too.
Well, one, I was like, can you get married that young in the United States? So did you live here or overseas?
I was here.
Okay.
So legally, I've actually been married for probably like 10 years instead, but I've been living with my husband's family. We got married culturally, and then what we ended up doing was getting a notary, like a note just written to like the school districts, because I was still going to school at the time, and just saying that I was living with family, because I did have like my uncle that lived up here too. My husband lives an hour away from where my parents lived at the time when we got married, and so that was kind of like the arrangement, since we had already gone and got culturally married. And so after a few years I turned 18, and then we got our marriage certificate and legalized our marriage. But yeah, that's like a whole nother story of itself.
I'm seriously just like, what? How did I not know this?
Yeah, it was crazy. I didn't even know how we even made it work, but it did.
I mean, I got married when I was 20, and I felt like that was young.
Yeah.
But we got engaged when we were 18, or when I was 18. So, yeah, still young, but.
So, yeah, we got married, and part of our culture has just always been, like, very reserved, and we weren't planning to have kids, right away, because we knew we were still young. I was 15 at the time, and my husband was 19. He's 4 years older than me, and so, we got married, and we didn't make any plans. We didn't even think about having kids. We didn't even think about starting a family, because we were just still so young ourselves. We were very ignorant, and I think after a few months, I realized there was just like a lot of changes, and I wasn't aware of it. I didn't know. I couldn't identify or acknowledge what was going on with me, but I just felt a lot of changes in my body, and I was too immature to just reach out and ask for just wisdom or advice in that area. And so I waited a few years until I started seeing a doctor, and by that point, I was just trying to figure out what was going on with my body, not knowing that I had symptoms of PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. And the doctors I was seeing at the time, they didn't have a clue what was going on with me either. And so I ended up taking a break from seeing doctors just because I just felt like I was wasting my time. And because they didn't have any answers for me, I just decided, I'm just going to take a break. And it wasn't until maybe 6 years into our marriage that I saw an infertility specialist. And she, like, the very first appointment I had with her, she pretty much agreed that I had PCOS, but she wasn't going to diagnose it until we did some testings. And yeah, it didn't take too long for her to take those tests and diagnose me with PCOS. And ever since then, I've just been trying to figure what life looks like with PCOS, and how do you deal with it, and knowing, like, the percentage of, me conceiving is very slim, but not impossible. So I just hold on to that bit of hope. And I did fall into a dark pit for a bit and just question God. And coming from a big family, and my husband comes from a big family too, and we just never thought that we would experience, infertility so soon in our marriage. And so I was just in a season of just doubting God and just wrestling with what was going on in that season of our lives. I never expected to struggle with infertility. So I fell into a pit, and I just started wrestling with God. And it was a season of doubt for me, and just questioning why I was facing infertility when I dreamt of having a family. I'm the big sister in my family of 7 at that time, 8 now. I have a little 3-year-old brother, but I've always seen myself being a child caregiver or just raising up children, and that was really hard. And I doubted God, and I doubted His plans, and I questioned everything, every bit of my faith. Like, I was just so shaken during that season of my life, and I felt so alone. I don't think my husband knew what to say. I don't think he knew how he felt either. And yeah, after being consumed by this label of, having the syndrome, I spent a good chunk of time researching every free opportunity I got, while I was working, to just look up ways I could heal PCOS, or look up ways I could, or look up ways that it could be cured. And even till this day, there's just no cure for it. It's definitely something that you just kind of live with, and you kind of have to just figure out how to make the best out of life. And there's some things that can be treated and reversed, but it can't be removed completely. And so I'm super grateful, though, now that I look back and realize that that fall it didn't take a long time. Like, it was very shortly lived, and but I'm so grateful for it at the same time, because I wouldn't be where I'm at today if not for that. And out of that came this desire of just wanting to know what God had in store for me. And everyone kept saying God probably has better plans for you, or maybe it's just not His time yet. But I wanted to hear that from Him myself, and that led me into just a season of prayer and fasting. And my husband and I had decided to commit to, I believe it was like a 30-day prayer and fasting. And through that, I prayed for healing and just clarity in what God was doing with my life. And over and over again, He would just remind me that He brought me into the wilderness for a reason, and it's to pursue me, and He wants me to lean in on Him, for me to just let go of all of the distractions. And that was really challenging, and even towards the end of the fasting, I realized like I had started to idolize the idea of being a mother, then allowing God to reign in my heart. And that was so hard to take in. But it was in that moment that I realized I needed to let it go and just trust God's plans for me, and to just trust that, you know, even if it's not clear and there's no blueprint of what my life is going to look like in the next 5 or 10 years, that I would just hold on to him as my ultimate hope, and he was going to do something big with it. And so, yeah, that has led me to have a huge desire to like work with kids. I didn't always see myself working with kids, but I'm a child caregiver. I'm a nanny right now, and I've worked in daycares and in Christian organization with women in a women and children's center with kids, and it's just been amazing to be able to have this like this new desire to like love on kids in a different way.
Yeah, I remember you saying something about like wanting to, was it travel? Like minimize kind of thing. Am I making this up?
No, remember. You're not at all. Actually, you have good memory.
Okay.
Considering it's been we've had so many different trials. But yeah, we all have, that's also been part of our journey, is just learning to simplify our lives and minimize. And the journey really started off with me. I just felt so many convictions. I feel like God's just like always moving in me and teaching me. And I just look back to Jesus and how he lived, and he was just always like able to just go, to just go wherever he felt led to, wherever he felt like the people needed him. And he had nothing but, the clothes on his back and to be able to just like serve people. And I often think back on that. And so there's been so many times where I've had opportunities to serve, and I just always think on like, man, it doesn't matter if I have to drive like an hour and a half to get to this safe house to work with women, who are coming out of sex trafficking. Like, Jesus walked everywhere. I'm just driving, and over time, like, that started to play in just like how we could impact the world. I just realized I was investing so much in myself materialistically, and when it came down to helping out ministries and organizations, like we always felt like stuck because we didn't have the means to it. And I just quickly felt God just impress on my heart, like, what are you doing? Like, you think that you don't have the means, but you really do, but you're just using it for something else instead. And I was just blown away by the amount of stuff that I had just like accumulated over the years in our marriage. And it
accumulates so fast.
Yeah, it does.
It just is like, I mean, we sold everything and moved to the Amazon and moved back, and I'm still like, how do we have so much stuff?
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly stuff just creeps into your house, and without even knowing, you're thinking, like, I'm being thoughtful about this purchase. And then all of a sudden, it's like you have to constantly evaluate, like, every so often, because it just happens. And yeah, so out of that season also came this, like, journey of just, like, learning to simplify, learning to be content with, like, the bare necessities, and just really questioning, like, the stuff that we bring in. Like, is it, bring value into our lives? Does it make us happy? Like, and is it long lasting? Where is it coming from? Like, who made our stuff? Like, having to ask ourselves those harder questions. And my husband hates it. It's definitely been hard for him, but it's raised a lot of awareness, and we have like deeper conversations about it. But yes, our goal is to minimize, and within 3 to 5 years, we're hoping to be able to just pursue living in a van, a Sprinter van, and just converting that and just traveling the country. And we just want to be able to set up our lives where we could be available wherever God needs us when it comes to natural disasters, or especially with like, all the crisis going on right now in the world. Like, we're just so sick and tired of like always just having justifications to keep us where we're at when our heart is like there with people. And so yeah, one day we want to be able to just kind of like drop everything and go, and we're just in the works of just trying to figure out how we can sustain that in the future. And long-term wise, we want to be able to go to different countries, and just if God never if God is calling us to love on children in a different way, and it's not biologically, then we're fine with that too. We've accepted that, and we want to just go and love on all the kids that need all the love that they desire. And we know there's so many kids out there that are orphaned, and our hearts with them.
I love that so much. Just in a way of like, I think it can be so easy to have this plan and expectation for how your life is going to go. Mm-hmm. And then something comes up where it kind of derails that. But I love that you still have no idea what the future holds, obviously. Yeah. What could happen or may not happen, but that you're still choosing to pour your love into something that is important and has value. Mm-hmm. You're willing to invest into children's lives who want that like motherly figure, that fatherly figure, and don't have that. Mm-hmm. And that's where you kind of step in and take that place. So I could totally see you doing that one day. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I just love your willingness to, it's kind of like make lemon into lemonade, but that sounds cheesy because it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
But just your willingness to still say like, okay, this isn't going the way I thought it was going to, God, but I am still willing to be obedient. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of comes down to everyone's Christian walk, is like to just be obedient.
Yeah.
And it may not look like what we expect it to, but that's really all that God asks us to do, is to be obedient.
Yes. That's so true.
And that's when like that growth and kind of those life-changing moments happen. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I like always go back in this weird line of like, I want to be encouraging, inspiring to people, but I also want them to understand it's not all rainbows and butterflies either.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really hard to walk through those things, but you almost have to walk through those kind of valleys and those deserts to be able to enjoy, let's say, the promised land or like whatever it is.
So true.
But you have to be willing to grow in those dry moments, I guess, to reap the harvest.
Yes.
And that God will honor your faithfulness and your obedience. And it may not look the way you think it is, but it's always better. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Like, it's always better.
It is. It really is. And
you're like, I thought this was going to go one way, and it didn't, but that's okay because, and you know, it's not always overnight. Like, it doesn't just happen. You're like,
no.
Oh, that was so worth it.
Yeah.
It takes that time and perspective to look back and say, oh, that was worth it. And I grew because of it.
Yeah.
And if it would have happened the way I planned and expected it to, life would be so different.
So true. It's funny that you brought that up because I reflect now and I look back on if we had gotten married and started like just popping out kids like my parents did, because you know we're like all like a year if not less after another.
Wow.
And I'm just thinking, wow, like we would have had at least 7 kids by now, and I would probably not care about kids. Like, I mean, I'd probably try my best to be like a good mother, but like this long season of waiting has like given me like just this huge perspective of how to love kids, and working with foster kids have taught me like, you know, like even as good of a parent I can strive to be, like there's still so much trauma that just every child will experience, and just, you know, like just, I don't know, just being able to learn from all the people around me, from the parents, and see their mistakes and see the things that they do that is working. Like I'm just so blessed to at the same time looking at this season of waiting and just realizing, wow, God is preparing me for something bigger. Like, I can definitely see it now.
Yeah, for sure. I feel that way about many things in my life as well. You've mentioned like a lot of your family and your culture.
Yeah.
So what is your family's culture? What's the background you come from?
So we are both Hmong. And if you don't really know about the Hmong people, then what I can say is we're tribal people who live in like the mountains of like Thailand and Laos and like Southeast Asia. And yeah, so we're just found in like the deserted like villages that are kind of up there. But my I can't remember at what age my parents migrated here, but they met here in the U.S. and then got married. And so,
wow.
Yeah, my you know, we're the first I'm the first generation here along with my siblings. And, it's hard, you know, when you're in this whole new culture, and country, like, not really surrounded by our own people for the most part, like, but still having to, like, my parents still have that same mentality of how it was back then where they were from. And so when I say like our culture, when I bring up our culture, it's just, there's a lot of hardship that comes out of it because like in our culture, like you're looked down upon if you can't have kids, you know, and I know that that's like kind of like every culture, but it's to the point where like, you know, usually the elders will encourage like the husband to like remarry in those cases. And it's really, yeah, and like, you know, women are just looked down upon. And I'm so grateful my husband, you know, like he doesn't believe in that. He doesn't support it. Like it makes him sick whenever like he has relatives that bring those things up. But
so is his family also the same people group?
Yeah, same.
Okay. His family was here too?
Yeah.
Like small world.
Yeah. Yeah, his family, I think they may have been here longer than my parents were. I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but he's also, you know, his siblings are also first generation here as well. And yeah, we somehow...
I love learning about people groups and cultures, so...
Yeah, I'm sure you do, especially when you do like mission work. Yeah, you have like this appreciation for different cultures.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've always loved learning about different cultures. Like I can remember being at camp when we had like a missionary come from Africa and tell of his stories, and I was like front row center every time and would like push girls out of the way if they wanted to be closer because I was like, no, I want the best seat. But we took a class called Perspectives, and it's like a nationwide course that just really dug deep into people groups and missions, and it was a great course, so I will promote them. I think it was a class that just presented it in a healthy way, with obviously lots of great perspective. But they bring in like different speakers every week, and so you get to hear firsthand from different people. And then there's like different levels of the course, and the highest one you have to write like a paper over an unreached people group. And like a strategy on how you would reach them.
Wow.
So it was really interesting and fun. So when I hear, like, I've never heard of your people group before, and so I'm like, oh, tell me more. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Like, I want to learn more.
Yeah, it's actually really sad because like we don't have like, you know, history books, like, you know, I'm pretty sure most people groups that are just unreached and stuff like that, and so it's all like, you know, like just passed down by word of mouth and storytelling and stuff like that.
That's a lot of what they talk about too in the class with how different people groups are and stuff.
Yeah, but yeah, in our culture, so there's just like a lot of like stigma when it comes to like infertility. Like they just look at you like you're broken, and you know, like it's easy to just replace you. And so it's odd though, because you know we're both like we both come from Christian families, and so I thought that was odd to experience that even in a Christian like a church, you know. But it was real. Like, it was it took a long time for us to even tell people, because I just didn't want like the assumptions and the judgments of it. But once like we started to talk more about it and we were comfortable with sharing our story, like we just still felt like people just kind of like avoided conversations, or they just looked at us like something was wrong. Or especially me, like in our culture, it's like a lot of times if something's wrong, like the blame is usually placed on the woman. I don't know why. But
yeah,
it was hard just being in our church. But I knew so many women who were facing infertility long before I was, you know, and the fact that they just didn't feel like they had a voice and they didn't feel comfortable to share their story, it just broke my heart. And when I was like in the thick of it, I was like, so I think I came to a point where I was just like, this is not right. Like, we should be able to talk about this. We should be able to encourage one another and support each other during the season. Like, it's the like thing when we face trials like this. Like, it's when we most feel lonely. And why is it that we're isolating ourselves even more?
Yeah, or letting people isolate you.
Yeah,
kind of thing. Which now that you've mentioned those sorts of things, I'm like, yeah, no wonder you felt like your story wasn't worth telling.
Yeah.
Like, and being able to find the joy in that, because I mean, cultural expectations are real, and can definitely, I mean, I can see how that would be a struggle, even more of a typical struggle, I feel like. But then I also feel like that's what makes your story even more worth telling, is because you come from a background with such a deep misunderstanding of infertility, I guess. So it's like, it's even weightier than just like, oh, not being able to have kids, but like the fact that people in your culture could encourage your husband to find someone else to be with that could give him kids, that sort of thing.
I've even had people come up to me and say, like, you know, like, ask if I've like repented, or if there's something that I did that I've yet to bring to the Lord. And like, that was just so discouraging, and that's got to be one of the biggest reasons why I just felt like the enemy was just really at work. And I felt like even more so I needed to share my story of how God has revealed himself to me, and how he isn't a God that holds on to those things, because Christ already died on the cross for all those things. And you know, I didn't, like, it wasn't because of something I did in my past that I can't recall that he would hold out on me, you know? And so, it took a long time, but we had a few people, like, bring that up to our attention, and we just walked away, just not allowing those things to affect us, because we know that wasn't the truth that God had placed on our hearts.
Right. I love that. Well, I've really loved our conversation so far, and it wasn't really the direction I was thinking it was going, but I think it's been a conversation like that we needed, and it's good. I like it. But I want to ask you a couple more questions. So I don't think you've actually said the name of your blog.
Oh, yeah. It's Beauty of Barrenness.
Yes.
Yeah. And I shared earlier about just how that name kept popping up during my prayer and fasting. And yeah, I think the message God had placed on my heart was to share how even in the season of barrenness, in the dry, desert land that we may feel stuck in, during different times of our lives, God wanted me to also share with other people just like the beauty he was bringing out of it, and to just sit there and embrace it. Like, even like earlier, like what you were saying, like sometimes like it's we have to go through those challenges to grow. And like I just started seeing like that message just everywhere. Like, it would just pop up, like even in my marriage, like, you know, like declaring like the promises for our marriage, and not, even though I'm not seeing it, just declaring like there's beauty in the barrenness. Like, even though our marriage is lacking some things, there's beauty in this. Like, there's beauty that's going to come out of it. And you know, I have friends that have been in relationships and just like struggling with this, you know, this I don't know, stigma of like, oh, in our culture, it's like if you're a woman and you're 18 and you don't have a boyfriend or any man in your life yet, it's like you're pretty much bound to like not being married at all, and then you just get all of this weight pushed on you. And so I've seen God show me there's a beauty of this barrenness, of not having someone in your life, like not having to just like find a partner or a boyfriend, like not having to rush into a relationship, but be where you're at and enjoy the singleness and enjoy what God is doing in your life right now. The gift of just being able to be available and being able to be used by God, and that freedom in it, And so, yeah, like over the years, it's just evolved. Like since that season of fasting, like God has just shown me there's like so many people that need to know, like there's just beauty that comes out of the deserts and the barrenness that we experience.
Yeah. And then when you were talking and like barrenness, I'm thinking just dry ground, right? Mm-hmm. And so I keep having this picture of how we see the dry ground, but we can't see what's underneath. And so there's like seeds that have been planted, and all we can see is the dirt, but like we know that a plant, it takes time for it to grow. It takes time for those blooms to come. And so just, I don't know. I love that there's so many plant analogies in the Bible. And just knowing that we have to water the dirt. We have to till the ground. There's so many different things that translate into kind of the spiritual realm of things. And so while we want to be so quick into making things happen, like if we look at anything else in nature, those things take time. They don't happen overnight, Yeah. But knowing that it's still there, like a seed is life, like it is life, but we can't see it and it's under the ground, but it blooms into something beautiful. But it still takes some work on our part. Whether that be through praying, fasting, just like asking God what he sees for us, in those acts of obedience. And then we see that harvest. And so for you, and the season you're walking through of like infertility, I think that translates to you and then translates to someone like me who has 2 kids in toddlerhood, where I feel like my disciplining every day is not doing anything. I'm going to raise these terrible people. But knowing, I get those little seeds, or I get those little visions into like who they are as a person, and knowing that my work is doing something, you know what I mean? So like, while it feels really just frustrating and overwhelming, I also know that the work I'm putting into it is creating growth and good soil. So I think that can translate on so many different levels.
Definitely.
Even to someone who is maybe waiting for a spouse or financial situation, like that kind of picture of the seed and the dirt can translate to so many different things. Yeah. It provides a glimpse and provides hope into like what the future will be. And I think that's really cool. So I'm going to ask you one more question, kind of serious question, and then ask you some fun questions.
Okay.
So I want to ask you, what is something unique about you and something that only you bring to the table? And I know this is a really hard question because someone asked me this and I was like, I'm having one of those days where like, I can't think of anything. But I feel like it's a good question to ask because I think it's something we need to see in ourselves, because it provides a little bit of kind of ownership and something that we can start walking out in more confidently.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I don't know if it's true about myself, but it's something that I strive for, and but I don't even know how to put this into words. But I feel like I'm like I mentioned earlier that I'm also like a creative at heart, and honestly, I love that word is being used a lot more nowadays, because and like just I don't know, 2 years ago, like people were like, oh wait, what do you do, like what do you like doing? And I'm like, I like creating stuff, like whether it be, you know, digitally, musically.
Well, did you do all the pictures for your market?
Oh, yeah.
And like style those? I mean, that was incredible. Those like things I strive to do. I'm be like, here, take my clothes, take pictures. I do photography. Like,
yeah.
I think you have such an eye for that. It's a really, I think people, this sounds so cheesy, underestimate the power of a good flat lay or like styling, but it's a really hard thing to do. It really is.
Yeah. And so I guess where I'm going with is, I think for me, what like sets me apart is just like the creative mind or the creative perspective that I have, like kind of like relays into my life in a sense. Like I feel like in the past few years, like God has also taught me, like, you know, I also get to be kind of like the creator of my life, and how my life, like the lifestyle I have is a way of me creating, like the things that I allow into my space and how I'm creating.
Like how you decorate your house or yourself, or those sorts of things. Is that what you mean? Or just an outwardly expression of who He created you to be, kind of thing.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, all of that. And I recently stumbled upon this book called The Artisan Soul.
Ooh, that sounds good.
It's so good. And then this finer words here underneath, it says, crafting your life into a work of art. And it's by a pastor named Erwin Raphael McManus in LA, and he's the pastor to this church called Mosaic. But he's such an artist, and when I read these words, it's exactly what God has been placing in my heart, and just how to view life, and how life itself is just a canvas, and He, our creator, but He allows us to also be able to tap into that creativity that He's given to us. And so when it comes to writing or creating, or even when I'm choosing the things to allow into my life to influence me and stuff like that, I'm trying to be very mindful, and I try to be, I guess, just very careful about what I allow to influence me, because I want everything to kind of just yell or pour out and reflect just the creativity that God I don't know, is allowing us to just be able to partner up with Him in. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does.
Yeah, but there's a quote here that just spoke out to me, because it's exactly what I feel like God has been revealing to me all these years with my journey and with beauty of barrenness. And it says, there is hope in the midst of pain, love in the midst of betrayal, courage in the midst of mystery. To turn our lives into masterpieces is to know both pain and healing, despair and hope, darkness and light. Our most powerful work comes when we reveal beauty in the midst of tragedy.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, and I don't know, I feel like that summarizes kind of just the perspective I have when it comes to and it's kind of like I live and breathe beauty of barrenness now, and that's where God's constantly using that to encourage me to live out of that. And so, when I see people hurting, it's like God's like, there's beauty in this barrenness, and I want you to speak into this. And I guess my blog has evolved from not just talking about infertility, or from talking about infertility, into all these other areas that we see barrenness in, and so it's just been a tool and a platform for me to share my story, and I hope that one day I can inspire other people to share their stories. And I'd love to partner up with people and help them find a way to share their stories somehow, and just to really believe in the stories that God has given them. Every story is so unique, and I believe that so strongly now, after going through so many hardships, and having to just realize that for myself took a long time. And so I want to encourage people to be able to do the same too, to just have the courage to share their stories.
I love that. I'm all about people sharing their stories, which is why I'm so third time's a charm, right?
Yes. Yes.
Finally getting your story told. Oh my gosh.
Yay. Thank God.
But I have similar thoughts, and it's so hard because it's really easy to compare with people. And so I had an instance a week ago of listening to a girl in a very similar field that I am in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so successful, like she's done amazing. And I'm like, she's only been in business for 2.5 years and I'm a year. Like, how am I going to do these things? And then I was like, whoa, Brianne, stop yourself. Like, you don't choose the things that have happened to you. And so, like, obviously we all have these different life paths and passions and how we get into different things in our upbringing. Like, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And so this girl had done all these like really incredible things in the business realm before she started her own company. And so I just had to stop myself and be like, look, if it was meant to be, God would have planned that for you and that would have been your story, but it's not. So own your own story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think I experienced that too, like, cause I shared earlier that I started writing my blog, like a while back, but I left it and I just kind of like neglected it for a season just cause of basically fear of all those things. And I, even though I had like somehow like embraced my story, I went through this season of like, and it kind of comes back to our culture again too, where I just started feeling like, oh my gosh, what's like our family gonna say if they like heard my story, or like what are, people probably don't like even believe like, the things that I'm sharing, or like who does she think she is, like, to just like put out her story like that, as if like I don't know, it's just the enemy puts all these thoughts in your mind and it's crippling, and it's real. And I think that at like being able to come, or just being on the other side of that now, one thing that I just like hold on to, that keeps me grounded is, it's, realizing what my goals are and realizing like what success looks like. And, also realizing that, if my story only touches one soul, I've done my job. And and that's the other thing too, is like there's so many people who are like sharing their stories in different platforms, and like, and in the very same field as us, and it's so easy to compare. But then at the same time, like, another thing that God has placed in my heart too is like, just realizing like this world is so big, and like even though people have thousands and thousands of followers, like it's so crazy that we can still reach like people who are unreached. You know what I mean? Like, your outreach is different from mine, and I mean, there's some like niche that kind of like plays along with that too. But when you think about it, like our worlds, like the people we reach is completely different from each other. I think it's so easy to just focus on like, oh my gosh, like someone's doing so much better in the same area that I'm like kind of working in, or where I feel like called to, and it's just easy to just like give up and step away. But I think that's something that God has used to encourage me, as like, okay, your outreach is different from hers, even though her story may be kind of similar, it's not your story. And so like keep going at it, keep sharing. And, it's not about the masses, but it's about the one soul that I'm calling you to reach out to. So I just, even in my moments where I'm like comparing again, like my husband helps remind me of that too, to keep me grounded and realize, okay, I'm not doing for, popularity or to be famous, but to just the sheer fact of sharing hope, and just, constantly remembering that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, and it's like we're all going to connect with different people. Naturally, or just however that connection happens. But my voice might connect differently to someone than someone else's voice. Obviously, I'm like, how do I make that make sense?
Even voices, even the tones, it's so true.
And then our ages, like the people I'm comparing myself to are an older demographic. Not saying they're old, but they definitely have a different demographic. And I think even that's important because with the way our just technology and world is changing, I think it's making the generation smaller.
Yeah.
Like a smaller age group of people, whereas it used to be a broader range of people. And so obviously someone who is doing something that's 10 years older than me, that definitely produces different connections than people my age, you know? Yeah. And I have no idea what the next 10 years hold for me. So it could be one of those things where it just builds. And then by the time I'm 35, 40, those things I've worked towards, I see the payoff then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's finish this off with something fun and lighthearted. I want you to tell my listeners 3 things that you are enjoying right now.
Okay, right now I am enjoying all lavender things.
Yes.
I'm just like completely in love with it. Especially lavender kombucha. That's one of my favorites.
Oh my gosh, mine too. And my husband's like, why do you drink that? That is so gross. And I'm like, it is my favorite. I love lavender kombucha.
My husband says it tastes like you're drinking like a hand soap. And I'm like, that is a lie.
It is a lie.
It does not.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a local kombucha like van here.
Oh, I think you mentioned that.
Yes, I think I have. And they have a van and they sell kombucha out of it. Sounds sketchy. Yes, I have. Because in my first episode, I talked about it with my friend Nicole. And she was like,
That's
good thing they didn't kidnap you. And I was like, yeah, that would be funny. A kidnapping kombucha van. But the lavender kombucha is the best.
And the second thing, I've been enjoying every single minute that I can get alone. And it's funny, I don't have kids, and so I shouldn't have that struggle, but a whole nother story that I can get into, we're co-living with Roger's family, and so, which is my husband, and so it's just a busy house, and so finding quiet time with the Lord, or just time to work out, or time to meditate is really, really hard for all of us, and so I'm just loving every minute that I can just take in to, just for myself, and to also allow and invite God into, because it's so easy to just get caught up in like the chaos and just the busyness of life and feel like there's no time left, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I love some alone time too.
Yeah. Number 3, what is something I'm loving right now? My husband and I just started this book called The Navigators Council. I don't know if you've heard about it. I feel like
I've heard that. I've heard about it.
Yeah. It's a local couple that's like really, they have a blog and they have their own business too, but they're a young couple and they just got married like maybe 2 years ago. Wow. And like they hit the ground running with like this like ministry for marriage and just wanting to incredible. Fight against like the statistics of divorce and stuff like that. And so, so it's called Navigators Council, and it's just basically a book to help create space for especially busy couples to just, make a time in the week to just be intentional about the upcoming week. And, there's a smaller devotional in there, and then there's like 6 questions that are asked every single week, and you get to just really kind of dig deeper in conversations and being very, very intentional in the time that you have together. So, such as what are things that, I can work on to, like better support you this week, or, what are some things that you're thankful for this week that, you'd like to share with your spouse and stuff like that. So we're really liking it. I mean, simple questions like that, but I feel like sometimes we're so busy that like spending time together can just look like watching a movie and just being really quiet, but it's like we need those moments of connecting. And so it's been a really great tool. I'm really excited to see where it leads us. But yeah, that's like we tried it for the first time yesterday. We did the first devotional chapter or whatever you call it, and it was really amazing.
I like that. And it's funny how those easy questions, we think they're easy, and then you're like, oh wait, I really have to think about these, you know, and you kind of have to dig deep, and you're like, oh, I thought that would be easy, but you realize you've kind of been in the flow of like surfacey things. that they make you dig just a little bit deeper. But yeah, that's really cool. I'll have to look into that. And the last thing I almost always forget to ask. So where can my listeners find you in this crazy world of the internet?
All right. So on social media, I'm mostly on Instagram, and on my blog site. So it's Beauty of Barrenness, and that's 2 R's and 2 N's. It's funny, like even sometimes I type it out and I'm like, wait, how many R's, how many N's? But yeah, so it's Beauty of Barrenness on Instagram, beautyofbarrenness.com for my blog, and then on Facebook I have page 2, and it's also Beauty of Barrenness if you search in the search bar. So yeah, that's where I'm at for now. I feel like that's enough to keep me busy. Yeah,
for sure. And I'm just going to tell you guys, you have to go read her blog. You're just so full of wisdom, and you really have a way with words that's captivating. And honestly, I can't even like sit down and read blog posts very often. And so in the realm of like everyone kind of in the blogosphere telling you like, you need this product in your life and this and that, like it's so refreshing to just read someone's genuine thoughts and in a way that's encouraging and uplifting, because I think we've really lost that. So I love reading everything that you write and post. I think you have a gift.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Dora, for coming on today, and I look forward to our chats. I'm sure we'll have more in the future because you're amazing and I love getting to talk with you. So also, speaking of crazy internet things, Dora is meeting up with my friend Kristen, who I interviewed on the podcast as well. And they just decided to connect with each other because Kristen's going to be up in your direction this week. So I love the internet. It's so cool. Like, I think some people think it's so creepy, but I'm like, why not? Like, this is such an awesome opportunity to just take advantage of and meet people that you wouldn't normally meet. And it's kind of, it gives you an in to like find that common ground before meeting in person. And I think it almost makes it easier to just jump right into conversation versus, saying, hi, my name is so-and-so and my name's so-and-so. And you kind of have to work to find that common ground. Like you already have it. It's there. And you just jump right in.
It's funny. I've reached out to like an Instagrammer, like at the beginning of the summer. And like, even though that took so much courage for me to ask her to go out to coffee with me, like, there was so much goodness that came out of it just because we had one common factor of like loving Jesus and also the fact that she's living my dream life. She's already living in a camper and traveling the world,
Oh, that's
but
so cool.
There was so much anxiety still, came the day of, and I think like I'm so grateful that like, like even like with meeting, like anticipating the meetup with Kristen, like it's just to see like this community that you've already like built up and to be able to meet all the women that and that you've been sharing their stories with too. And it's just, it's just so cool and I feel like there's gonna be less anxiety when it comes to it, and just knowing that I've already heard their stories shared on the podcast. So it's gonna be awesome.
Oh, cool. And I had kind of one of those moments not too long ago. I found one girl through hashtags, and I shared a post about just like the struggles of moving, and even though it's awesome and glamorous, like looks glamorous, I should say, it's also like really hard and challenging. And even though I enjoy the move, it doesn't mean that it comes with painful and lonely moments too. And a girl found, I guess she was searching like Waco hashtags and reached out to me, and we had her family over for dinner last night.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because their movers have not brought their stuff to their house yet, and they've been here for almost a month. And so I was like, stop eating out, just come eat like a home cooked meal. And then we met another couple, and they actually ended up going to our church, and they have a school bus that they're remodeling right now that they're going to eventually live in. So it's just crazy. I love the internet.
Yeah, seriously.
When it's used for good, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on, and
Thanks for having me.
I'm so glad this finally worked out for us.
Yes, praise God. I'm like doing a little dance up here.
Me too.
I'm like, everyone in my house has been praying for this too, and they're just like,
yes,
good luck, we're praying for you guys. I'm like, more prayers.
I love that so much.
Like come back down.
Well,
yeah, thanks again.
I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, you take care, Brianne.